Hi guys, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Seb and today I'm going to show you how to make sourdough bread. Hey guys, so today's show is all about sourdough and sourdough bread and how I bake it at home. I'm no expert. For me, this is just a hobby. I bake my bread for my family and for my friends, and I thought perhaps you guys might just like to follow along at home and have a little bit of fun. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the equipment that I use here, and we'll talk a bit about flour, and then I'm going to show you how I make a sourdough starter. So let's get cracking. So let's quickly talk about some of the equipment that I use to bake bread at home. Really nothing complicated. I've got a mixing bowl, which I use. I bake all my bread by hand. If you've got a KitchenAid or you've got a mechanical mixer, lucky you, use it. Saves a lot of time and effort. Flour bins. I buy all my flour in ginormous 25 kilo bags, and I find it nice and easy to decant my flour using a flour shovel into a smaller bin, and I keep that readily available on the worktop in the kitchen. You're going to need a small jar. Something like this is great for making sourdough starter. I've got two here with my starters in, you can see, and they're just, really cheap. It can be anything, a Kilner jar or a little Tupperware tub, perfect. We'll talk a little bit about flour again in a minute, but I've got a little flour shaker here. It's just for dusting loaves before they go in the oven. A really good bread knife. Get yourself a really good bread knife. Sourdough by its nature is pretty crunchy. Has a tough crust on it, so having a sharp bread knife makes a big difference. Spritzer serves lots of purposes, creates steam in the oven, and you can spray your other half in the face with it when they're annoying you. So get yourself a spritzer. You're going to get dough absolutely everywhere, because dough actually has to be quite wet to make really lovely, light, fluffy bread. So you're going to need these dough scrapers. Plastic, metal, great for cutting dough, the metal one, and the plastic one's great for scraping it off of your worktop or your workbench. These are little proving baskets. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes. You can do baguettes. You can do kind of those nice round cottage style loaves in these, which is nice. Get yourself a pair of oven gloves. You're going to burn your fingers. Turn the oven up full bore when you're baking sourdough. Get yourself some oven gloves. I've had about 4 or 5 baking stones, and they always seem to break. So I've kept a bit of this one, and I use it on the top shelf of my oven to help keep the heat nice and even in the oven. And then on the bottom, I've actually got a pizza steel, which is designed to do the same kind of thing, but because it's made of steel, it doesn't break. So my advice to you is get a pizza steel and not a pizza stone. As you buy these, they will break. It's as simple as that. So that's about it really for equipment. There's not much else to say. You can make it as complicated or as simple as you like. Fundamentally, this is what I use at home and I get pretty good results out of it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is flour. Just talk a little bit about flour. For these loaves of bread that we're going to bake, this is all about making a nice white loaf of bread. So we're going to keep it really simple. I use just a really good quality white bread flour. What you're looking for is to try and get a nice high protein level from your flour, somewhere between 12 and 14 grams per 100 grams of flour. It means you're going to get a really nice glutinous structured loaf of bread when you bake it. So I decant all my flour from a great big 25 kilo bag like that. I then store that just in a cupboard, or if you've got a larder or a pantry or utility room, just fold the bag back up and stash it away. And I decant it all into these smaller flour bins, and that just makes it nice and easy in the kitchen when I'm topping up my starters or when I want to bake. So get yourself some semolina flour. Semolina flour, I use it in my little flour shaker. I use it mainly for dusting loaves of bread, but I also use it to stop the dough from sticking to either the worktop in here or maybe even my pizza stone when I put it in the oven. You can use rice flour. It has exactly the same effect. It's just a really neat flour for dusting and stopping things sticking. So what exactly is a sourdough starter? Well, fundamentally it's just some flour and water mixed in a jar. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a culture that we use as a rising agent for our sourdough bread. So grab your starter jar, pop it on the scales, like so, and then measure out roughly 100 grams of your flour. This does not have to be perfect, just approximate is totally fine. And then mix in around about the same amount, say 100 millilitres of ordinary tap water. Next, get a spoon, give it a really good mix up, try and get rid of as many of the lumps as you can. Pop the lid loosely on the top of your jar and set it to one side. So over the next 3 to 5 days, it may even be a little bit more, you've got to look after your starter. Every morning, get up, feed it a little bit of extra flour, a little bit of water, and give it another really good stir. And then give it some sourdough love. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that I'm just prancing around being an idiot for the sake of this video. Well, I'm actually not. Because it turns out that there is yeast floating in the air all around us all of the time. And some of this yeast can make its way into your flour and water mixture. And this is what will give your sourdough its own unique flavour. It does take a little bit of time, however, and you're going to have to be patient. Probably between 3 and 5 days for you to start seeing those telltale little tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide forming in your starter. But when it begins to happen, it gets really exciting. You can see that all the hard work and love you've put into your starter is starting to take an effect, and you're not going to be far away from being able to bake. Now, you might find that your starter begins to fill up that jar. Well, don't panic. You can either pour some of it away, or a really nice thing to do is pop some of it in another jar and give it to a friend or family member so they can make their own sourdough too. One last tip, if you find that you want to have a break from baking or you're going away on holiday, no problem. Pop it in the fridge, feed it once a month, and your starter could last you a lifetime. So today I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of the equipment that I use to bake bread in my home. I hope you've mixed your flour and your water together and you've set it aside and you're going to look after it over the next few days. And the next time we get together, I'm going to show you how you take a starter that looks like this and turn it into a loaf of bread that looks like this. So guys, if you've enjoyed today's show, please hit the like and subscribe down below. If you've got any questions, fire away, I'll do my best to answer them, and I'll see you next time in Seb's Kitchen.